Wait couple more minutes, let everybody come in. All right, let's get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's virtual Successful Women in Business. We're super excited today to have Chief Miuccio of the Boca Raton Police Department to be able to present to you today. I'm super excited. I'm sure all of you guys are super excited. So before we get started with everything that's going to happen today, I want to give Sophia Lopez, our events admin, a couple of seconds to give you a little Zoom housekeeping. Sophia?
Hey everyone, welcome, good afternoon. Before we get started, I did want to mention that we'll be recording this entire presentation, so it'll be available on our YouTube playlist later this afternoon. So everyone will receive a follow-up email with the link to that playlist, along with some of our upcoming events this week and next. And we will also be doing questions, but we will wait until the end of the presentation to ask those questions, but please feel free to submit them in the Q&A box. So if you go to the bottom of your Zoom screen, click the Q&A button, you'll be able to submit your questions and we will ask them at the appropriate times. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sophia. And Successful Women in Business cannot happen without our wonderful supporters and sponsors of this program. We appreciate their support so very much, and we want to thank our Ruby sponsors, Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital, TrustBridge, West Boca Medical Center, our Sapphire sponsors, Bell Rock Capital, Center State, Florida Blue, Northwestern Mutual, the Striano Financial Group, and Toshiba. Thank you so much for all of your support. We are so excited that you are sponsors with us, even in the virtual world. So without further ado, it is my pleasure, I would love to introduce Michele Miuccio, Police Chief of the Boca Raton Police Department. Police Chief Miuccio has served in law enforcement for over 34 years. She joined the Boca Raton Police Service Department in 1989 and has been a member of the command staff for over 17 years, working in various facets of police operations and administration. Chief Miuccio previously served with the Margate Police Department as a dispatcher and officer for 5 years. Chief Miuccio earned a Master's of Science degree in Criminal Justice from Florida Atlantic University in 2007. I know some of you are saying, go Owls, so go Owls, where she received her Bachelor's of Art and degree in Criminal Justice in 2003. She was profiled as a distinguished graduate of Florida Atlantic University in Legacy Makers, 100 Women of Distinction at Florida Atlantic University. Chief Miuccio is a graduate of the Southern Police Institute Administrative Offices course at the University of Louisville. She also completed the Police Executive Research Forum Seniors Management Institute of Police at Boston University. Chief Miuccio's professional affiliations include the Police Executive Research Forum, the International Association of Chief of Police, the Florida Police Chiefs Association, the FBI Law Enforcement Executive Development Association, the National Association of Women Law Enforcement Executives, and the Palm Beach County Sheriffs of Police Association. So without further ado, welcome Chief Miuccio.
Thank you. As I said there, now I don't have a lot to say. No, I'm just one of the things that I get asked a lot is, why did you become a police officer? I wish that was such a simple answer that I could say, well, I became a police officer because of this. But it actually was a calling. I don't know exactly when it happened, but you know, at about 16 years old, I went to my parents and I said, I want to be a police officer. They looked at me and thought I was crazy and kind of said, oh, okay. Because no one in my family was in law enforcement at all. In fact, the family was, you know, my mom was in real estate and my dad had a beauty salon. So everyone just assumed I was going to become a hairdresser, which is a great profession because that's what my sister does. But I just kept going and I kept telling them, this is what I want to do. I don't know why, I don't know when, and I don't know how I'm going to do it, but this is what I want to be. So as time went on, when I started, I went into college and I said, all right, I'll start off easy. And it's never easy, because I said I wanted to be a crime scene technician. And crime scene technicians, that's a lot of work. And I didn't realize how much work it was going to be. And I was like, you know, gosh, that's so interesting, but I wasn't really sure. So I did my college time, and then I grew up in Margate, and there was an opening for public safety aide. And I put in for it, and we dispatched and we handled non-emergency calls. And then I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I really want to be a police officer. I really want to help people. I want to get out there, and I really want to do this. So I dispatched for a while, and I went to my supervisor at the time and I said, well, I want to be a police officer, and kind of chuckled a little bit and said, no, you're a really good dispatcher. And I'm like, I want to be a police officer. And I remember telling him, because they kept passing it over. You know, I went through my testing and everything, and I went to him and I said, listen, I'm going to go to Boca Raton. And I don't know why it was Boca. I just said Boca Raton. And next thing I know, I was headed to the police academy that following month. So I went to the police academy, became certified, worked for Margate for a couple of years, and I finally came to Boca. When I came to Boca Raton, it was so different. Such a professional agency, and they had women in supervisory positions, and the building, the atmosphere, everything. It was, you know, I want to say it was nurturing when I came here. And at first I was like, before I even walked through the door, I was like, oh, did I make the right move? I left my comfort zone and came here. So, you know, you're going to hear that a lot, is leaving your comfort zone and learning something new. So I really enjoyed my time on the road. I became a training officer, which I love to do. I love teaching new officers, and went into the detective bureau for several years, worked every aspect of the detective bureau. And it was exciting. It was some of the best times I ever had. And then the sergeant's test, you know, it reared its head, and I was like, and I was encouraged. You know, another thing you're going to hear a lot of is encouragement. I was encouraged to take the test, and I took the test and I became a sergeant, and I got to work in patrol and then back in the detective bureau. A lot of times opportunity presents itself, and in our agency during that time, there was a lot of opportunity that was presenting itself, because there was a lot of people retiring, a lot of people moving on. And lo and behold, there was an opportunity for a captain's position. And normally you would go lieutenant to captain, but the chief at the time was phasing out the lieutenant position. I was nervous. I was like, no, I can't do this. And I had people here in the agency that told me, you have to do it. You have to put your name in the hat. You have to give it a shot. Again, there was opportunity. I almost passed it up, but I was pushed into, with encouragement, you need to do this. So I became a captain, where I was a captain for quite some time. I think it was about 4 years in the districts. And then the next opportunity opened up for assistant chief. I thought, there is no way that I'm ever going to become an assistant chief, because there were other people that had put in for the position that I thought, you know, maybe they were more qualified than me. But again, the encouragement came and the opportunity was there. So I interviewed for the position and I got the position. Throughout all of this, you know, there were different times you heard I got my Go Owls. I got my both degrees from FAU. And during this time, I started learning a little bit about myself, and I started learning. I looked back over my career, you know, kind of going over this. And one of the things that my former chief used to say is be a learner and not learned. And I realized that's what I've been doing throughout my entire career. When I was a dispatcher, I wanted to learn everything I could about the system and about how to dispatch and about the city and knowing who to send to certain calls, because we weren't computerized at that time and you had to know your city. So I learned that. And then as an officer, I wanted to learn more. And as a detective, I kept reading and learning. You know, I think back now when I was a captain, there was jumping from a sergeant to a captain's position, there was such a learning curve that I missed out on. But as I started reading and listening and watching, because that's the biggest thing, I was watching people around me. I was watching the leaders that I saw that were leading the agency. And you learn from the good and you learn from the bad. And I've taken each part with me, and I've tried not to, you know, replicate the bad. And I've tried to learn to do the good. And you have to continuously learn and move on. When 2015 came around, or 2014, I believe, Chief Alexander at the time said, I'm gonna do a deputy chief's position, and would you like to be the deputy chief? And I'm like, well, what's that going to entail? And he says, well, you have the entire agency under you with me. I'll be able to do more community, and you take care of the day-to-day operations with me. And I said, okay, sure. You know, easy. Yeah. What a learner. You know, I had to learn so much. I had to learn about city process and department process. And the interesting thing was, he was such a generous person that he included me in everything so I could learn what was going on. So I was in the know that I met people. One thing I hated was writing policy, and now I actually enjoy it because he forced me to do the things I did not want to do, but realized it was the right course for me. So that was the other thing, is getting out of my comfort zone, listening, learning, watching. It made me a better leader, I hope, but it also made me a better person. And then I was very, very fortunate throughout my entire life and career that I've had very supportive people in my family. My husband, very supportive. Every time I would go to him, hey, there's a captain's position open. What do you think? Go for it. Hey, there's an assistant chief's position open up. What do you think of it? You got this. Every step of the way, he has supported me. He's been my sounding board on a lot of things. And my family, my parents growing up, you know, even though when I went to them and said I wanted to be a police officer, they thought I was nuts at first. But then when they saw I was serious, they were like, well, do it. There's nothing that's going to stop you except you. So, you know, it's being able to see opportunity, step through the opportunity, and get out of your comfort zone. You know, and once you do that, you also have, look around you, because you do have the encouragement around you. And, you know, people always talk about mentors. We've never had a formal mentoring program in this department, but throughout my entire career, I've always seen people that I looked up to and that have taught me different things. to this day, I still have mentors within this police department, whether they are officers or, sergeants, lieutenants. I look at everyone and I watch what they do and say, wow, that's really good. I want to, that's something I need to do. But I also listen to people, and I listen to, what they're saying. I can't be the person that says, now that I am the police chief, everything I say is going to be perfect. I still want to open it up to the folks around me who do the job day to day, because they do have great ideas. And that's the other thing that I would encourage people to do. Take advantage of opportunity. Get out of your comfort zone when you can. Listen to people around you, and then communicate with people. Talk to them. The biggest thing that we learned in our agency was you have to give context for what it is. And if you explain to people why you're doing what you're doing or why this new rule is happening, it actually helps. And it helps them understand it. And they go, oh, okay, this isn't bad. Now, if somebody comes and says, I don't think this is going to work, same thing, explain to me why. And they may have some valid points, and we may not be able to do it. So, those are some of the things as far as, it's kind of gone through a little bit of my history, things I've learned along the way. But, one of the biggest things is, in April 27th, 2020, I became the first female police chief in the city of Boca Raton. And that's not lost on me. I am truly honored and humbled. And that's because this is, in my opinion, the best police department in the nation. Your police department has 327 dedicated men and women who serve you every day. And they are the most amazing people that you could ever meet. They have talent that, there's times when the detectives are telling me about cases they're working and how they got to their conclusions, and I'm just awestruck. We have our officers that through this whole COVID, they've been out there and they've been making sure that people are safe. They're going to their houses. They're making sure that people are safe in their walking, when they're walking around or when they're riding their bicycles. We've been out there the entire time, and sometimes it's lost how amazing they really are and how dedicated they are to our mission, which is to protect and serve. A little bit of history about this agency. The Boca Raton Police Department became a police department in 1925. And in 1925, they had a town marshal. Our first police chief, because there was only one of them, was Charles Rallerson. And after that, I think it was like 1926, Ira Blackman became the police chief. Not that many people, still. And then in after 1926, when the crash happened, the sheriff's office kind of did a stint here until 1930, when they had another police chief, and that was J.D. Padgett. Now, I mention all these names because every one of these police chiefs brought something to this agency. It was the establishment of a police department. In 1937, a constable named Hugh Brown became a police chief. And a lot of people will remember, you may not, but if you see pictures of the man in the white Stetson, and they used to call him Brownie. Chief Brown was a police chief here for 33 and a half years. And that was from 1937 to 1970. So he built the police department, and he started listening to, when you read some of the stuff, he listened to people around him, especially the next police chief who was working for him, which was Charlie McCutcheon. And he brought a professionalism to this agency in that he brought education and training. And that was a big, big push for the 70s and 80s. And it was pretty amazing that reading back into some of the history where Chief Brown was adamant that his folks go to a police academy, because there was a time when you didn't have to go to a police academy. And after Charlie McCutcheon moved on to the sheriff's office as undersheriff, we had Frank P. Carey came in. He didn't stay long, and then Pete Petracco. And he became a police chief from 1983 to 1998. And what he brought into this agency was a professionalism through accreditation and through programs. He was here, like I said, till 1998. He brought our juvenile programs. He brought DARE. He brought the Juvenile First Offender Program to us. And then we had Chief Andrew J. Scott. And what he brought to us was training and equipment. He got us ready for tactical rifles and a lot of training that maybe was new, and we may not have gotten it right away, but he pushed for that. And then finally, he was here from 1998 to 2006. And in 2006, Chief Alexander came in. And, you know, Chief Alexander brought to us a lot of process on how to be better. And one of the things was we were able as an agency to define our why, which is to protect and serve, which is our mission. Your police department, the officers, detectives, the community service officers, the dispatchers, the records clerks, the crime scene technicians, everyone is here to protect and serve. And the customer service that they give is amazing compared to some other places. Now, you know, there's a lot of information that I gave. There's a lot of things I talked about. You know, one of the things with our department, because this is a women's leadership, that I wanted to point out was the Boca Raton Police Department has always led in the percentage of females in the agency. For our law enforcement side, there's 20% of our agency is women in law enforcement. And that is beyond the 13% that is national. And it's always been that way. There's always been a push to bring in the best and the brightest. And it didn't matter who you are, it was who they brought in. And right now we have 67% of our civilian population here are females. And if you look at our department wide, we're 35%. So a third of our agency is women in law enforcement, which is wonderful to see, especially when I started back in 80s. There was in Margate, I think there were only 3 women. I was one of them. And then when I came to Boca, my eyes were open, because that's when I saw women in supervisory positions. And I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. Maybe someday. Well, someday came, and I appreciate it. And like I said, I am just so honored to lead this agency. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, we do. We have 2 questions, but thank you so much for all that information. I mean, I just think you're super cool, and I'm geeking out right now, but that's okay. One of our questions is from Lisa Brown Bannock. She asks, what is the Boca Police doing about screening calls for domestic violence indicators?
I'm sorry, for what?
For screening calls for domestic violence indicators.
When we respond to every call that comes in, and you know, with our officers, I mean, the when we respond to a call, we always talk to people. We separate everyone to make sure that what is going on. Do we get a lot of domestic violence calls? We get a lot of domestic calls. And, you know, luckily for us, we have a victim advocate that works for our department. And any kind of call that we get, whether it's just a verbal argument between two people, or if we're going to be arresting someone because they put their hands on someone, that victim advocate keeps a file on every single person, and they call them and they check in on them to make sure that either things did not escalate or that if they need help. So, I mean, as far as screening, we also, when our dispatchers receive a call, they have a script that they go through depending upon what call is coming in. So they're able to ask specific questions to give the officers an idea what they're going into. And if there are some issues that screaming in the background or hearing somebody say, hang that phone up, that gives us an idea that maybe there's some domestic issues going on. And once we get there, we try to work it through our investigations.
Awesome, thank you. Just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, just put them right into that Q&A little chat box down there at the bottom of your screen with the little thought bubbles at the top. The next question says, can you share a time when your gender either hindered or helped you in your police career?
You know, it's kind of funny. I was talking to one of our female officers today, and you know, I was looking back, and I never really put, you know, said, oh, I'm a female officer, I'm going to go out here. I just wanted to be an officer. I never thought of myself whether, you know, that I'm a female. I just wanted to be a police officer. However, there are issues. I mean, there have been times very early in my career. I remember that, and this was a different agency, not this one. When I first got out of when I was in training, I remember one of the training officers was kind of put their hand up to tell one of the other officers to stay back because they wanted to see what was going to happen when somebody took a swing at me. And I was able, luckily for me, I was able to de-escalate it through speaking with them. So, I mean, there were some times over the years where you had to a little bit more of a challenge because some of the other officers wanted to see if you were, you know, if you were worth your weight out there. So, you know, you're able to kind of mitigate through some of that. But same thing with the positives, being able to speak to people. I have been able throughout my career to talk people down. And I think it's something to do with obviously being female, with being able to talk to people and being able to maybe get a point across or calm them down. And a lot of times, you know, you show up on a call, you know, I'm 5'6", and back then I was maybe like, you know, 125 pounds soaking wet, and you show up on a call and you got this big old burly guy. Last thing he wants to do is fight with a girl. So it's usually by the time you get there, it kind of calms things down. So you know, your communication skills worked in my favor.
Awesome. How do you communicate with the deaf population? Are you doing trainings on ADA compliance?
That's one of the, we were talking, funny enough, we were talking about it this morning. There are some of our officers that have been trained in sign language. We do have I think it's the TDY machines in dispatch so we can communicate. If we have to do interviews, we would get an interpreter, a certified interpreter, to come in and help us.
Awesome. We have a compliment. The Boca Raton Police Foundation is pleased to work alongside you and able to support the police department and help provide resources to enhance the safety of our community. Our next question, thank you, Chief, for your presentation and your dedication to our city. What training is being given to avoid a situation like what happened yesterday in Minneapolis?
We're continuous. We train all the time. Like right now, it's on a little bit of a lull because we have the COVID emergency that we have to deal with. But our officers receive some of the best training around. Our training unit, we have 3 officers and a sergeant, and we have learned over the past 5 years, I believe it's been now, we've learned the de-escalation techniques. We also have equipment to help us, not to mention our officers are very professional and they want to do what's right, and they do learn. They learn on their own. They learn from each other. And, if they do see somebody maybe doing something that is against training, they'll step in and stop it. So, and those are the different things that we've learned over time. We also have scenario-based training. So we'll have a scenario thrown out there, and somebody will have to walk into it, and it's like, if that, then this. And each time it goes, so it does go to a point where it's teaching them to de-escalate a situation by communicating.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We had a gentleman in the room today. Frank Filer says, thank you, Chief, for your excellent presentation. Mitzi Mick, how do you balance work and life responsibilities as you climbed up the leadership ranks?
Very carefully. I think that it's, we all learn, we all have our aha moments. And in my younger days, when I was a detective, I lived and breathed being a detective. All I wanted to do, I took cases home, I worked, I mean, that was it. Then there comes a point where it's like, wait a second, slow down. You have to have a balance in this. And as you move up, it's not easy, but you have to have, and like I said, I've got a great partner in my husband, and it didn't hurt that he was in law enforcement. But that he understands what I'm going through. And a lot of times he'll say, okay, it's time to, leave the whatever position it is, whether it was captain or assistant chief, deputy chief. Okay, leave that at the door and let's just relax for a while. So you have to have a strong partner that kind of brings you back to reality every now and then and says, okay, it's time to have a little balance. Let's have some balance here. So not the easiest, but it's doable.
I bet. What do you think is the most significant barrier for female leadership? And what is most significant positive quality a female leader can bring to the table?
I think one of the barriers to move up in the agency is just that it's a life balance. It's it's balancing having a family and being in law enforcement, and that's what we find with a lot of our female officers. Once you start having children, it's consuming. I mean, it's a full-time job. And then you have this as a full-time job. And as you move up in the ranks, you may have to go as a lieutenant or as a sergeant, you may have to go to midnights. And that's not real conducive sometimes when you have children. And that's why that partnership is very important. that the other person in your life needs to be able to help out and pick up some of the load. So, you know, I've heard it from so many different agencies, and I've seen it in so many different agencies, that sometimes that balance, like we were just talking about, it's hard to get. And then once you lose that momentum in moving up, then you lose a little bit of interest in it, and other things become more important, which, you know, family should be your most important. But you don't have the time or energy to put into being a leadership. And the other part was the asset.
Let me go back to it. I'm sorry, I kind of closed it out. It says, what is the most significant positive quality a female leader can bring to the table?
Communication, your mouth. We're fortunate, you know, being women being nurturers. We want to make things right, and we want to fix things, and that's what police officers want to do. You know, we always joke around, we're the fixers. You know, you got a snake in your house, they call the police. We'll go out and try to fix it. Whatever it is, we try to fix. And for a female, being able to communicate, talk to people, you know, maybe not be as, you know, a lot of people, like I said before, when I would go to a call and there'd be like a big old guy and he would look at me and go, oh, she's just a little girl, I'm not going to fight her. We kind of bring their stress level down, because now they don't feel challenged. They don't feel like, you know, like they have to prove anything. You know, which is good, you know. However, if you've got a good, and it's male or female, and I will tell you it's male or female, if you can communicate with people, it's so much better, because you can get compliance, you can de-escalate a situation, and you can get to a positive resolution.
Thank you. We have an anonymous question. What advice do you give women on how to successfully grow within your career and not feel intimidated to do so, especially in the quote unquote male dominated fields?
You know, it's funny, while I've been in this department at Boca, I've had a couple of people throughout my career that I kind of knew, you know, they had no use for me because I was a female, and I kind of veered away from them. But other than that, I've always found a very, a very nurturing department. The men and women here in this agency throughout my career have always been nurturing. They've always wanted to help. Like I said, there have been some where, and I just I stood away from them. I didn't need them. I didn't need them to bring me down, nor did I need to listen to what they, had to say. But I think that you have to kind of make, it's hard to put in words. If you have to get yourself where you feel that you are ready to move on, find people around you, whether, a small group of people that are going to encourage you and help you grow. And then once people start seeing that, you're not going to see that male versus female kind of situation. I think if you surround yourself with people that are there to help you, and there are people there, no matter where you work, there, it's like I said, I grew up in predominantly, the first agency I was in was predominantly male, but there were a lot of teachers in that agency, and a lot that, in fact, would say to me, hey, you need to move on to another agency. This agency's too small for you, and encourage that. And then when I got here, the same thing. Like I said, there's always going to be those naysayers, but there are people. Just look for them and surround yourself with them, and they will help you, and those obstacles will start falling down. And just be the best you can be in whatever you want, whatever profession you're in, and learn. That's the biggest thing, is learn and educate yourself, so that you do understand things. And when people say, no, we can't do that, you say, oh, maybe we can. Let's look at it this way. We can maybe do it this way. So I just say, just try to find people that, and I'm not saying like-minded people, because sometimes that'll get you in worse trouble, but get with people that really want to succeed and move wherever you work forward, and then become a leadership team.
Awesome. Thank you for that advice. Michele McGovern, she says, thanks, Chief, for all you do. My daughter watched with me and enjoyed hearing your background. Can you talk about how you are keeping your team safe in the time of COVID?
Our team is, we have gotten, from the beginning, we've been working on making sure we stay safe, because if we stay safe, then we can keep others safe. And we do that by, we're doing a little bit different. We're wearing masks in public. Our guys actually found a mask that worked, and we ended up getting it for them. We have them glove up. We have them wash their hands. I told them that the big thing was going to be, all they're going to hear from me during this is wash your hands, wash your hands. That's going to be my new catch line. So wash their hands, have the hand sanitizer with them. If they're going to make an arrest, we don't put them in our vehicles anymore. We bring our transport van out. Because that's a little bit easier to decontaminate than a vehicle. We also have made sure that they're not congregating within the building. We've done virtual briefings. They get a virtual meeting or virtual message from me through video a couple of times a week. They're just watching out for themselves and trying to stay as not getting into the middle of crowds. There's certain calls where we'll take over the telephone instead of having to go to somebody's house and maybe exposing ourselves, having people step outside to talk to us, so we're all not in the house together. So different things to make them safe is what we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you. We want you guys safe out there. We need you. Someone wants to know, what is your ideal activity to do over the weekend?
Rest. Actually, geez. My ideal activity to do during the weekend is kind of just relax with my husband, and believe it or not, I sit and crochet, and that kind of takes my stress level down. And right now, because of what's going on, and it's we're trying to stay home when we are home, that's my ideal activity right now. Normally it would be to jump on the back of his motorcycle and go for a ride.
Awesome. I think that's it for questions. If anybody has any other further questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box. Chief Miuccio, any final words?
Final words. I'm probably one of the most blessed people that you'll ever see in front of you right now. This agency, throughout my entire career, has been remarkable. The opportunities that have been afforded me through education, through training, through just meeting some of the most remarkable people I will ever know in my life. I've been very fortunate, and you never look a gift horse in the mouth. And I hope that throughout my career that maybe I have encouraged some of, and whether it be female or male officers, I hope that I've encouraged them to move forward and to move up in the agency, to be the next leaders in this agency. Because, you know, the funny thing I always told people was I'm always looking for someone to take my spot. Not in a negative way, but in a positive way, because I want to leave this agency in the best hands that I can, because I love this agency. I love the people in this agency. I love our community, and I've always done my best, and that's what I want. When I move on, I want to leave this in somebody's hands that it's just going to be as excited and as into this department as I am, so that I know I've left it into the next hands. And that's what I look for. And I hope that some of the folks that I've worked with here have seen that and are going to move up over the years.
Awesome. Thank you for those final words. And we have a last comment. It says, Chief, you've encouraged me to move forward and have inspired me as a female leader. Thanks, Sergeant Brown.
Oh, she is remarkable. She's one of our remarkable sergeants. We have, I believe it's 3 female sergeants, and that's very very nice to hear. Thank you.
We have one last comment. Your story was inspiring. You come across with humility even when tooting your own horn, well balanced, giving credit to others for your success without diminishing your own hard work. You can't see us, and still I felt as if you were talking to me. You're relatable, and I am appreciative of your generosity in being here. Your story resonates with me. It took me decades to find my why, but I have. I appreciate your candid handlings of your questions. You are the personification of the word leader. I too am geeking out over you. That's so awesome. Good, I'm not by myself. Well, thank you so much for being here and your presentation. As you can see from those amazing comments, we are so happy that you're with us today. Thank you all for attending this virtual Successful Women in Business. Thank you so much to our sponsors. We appreciate you so much. Don't forget to check out the Chamber's website events page for some more virtual presentations and educational workshops coming your way. Look at downloading our app, because we have all this information at your very own fingertips. So we hope that you stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much, Chief. You stay safe out there.
Thank you. Everyone stay safe, and like I tell my guys, wash your hands.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye, everyone.